So I got real busy for a while, but I did want to do a video on this Matt Walsh response to his viewers. This is something I actually saw in passing, and I sort of saved it for later, thinking that maybe it'd be interesting to talk about. And the reality is that in many ways it is worth talking about, but his actual response is really not worth a damn. And that's kind of, I'm going to do it anyway, because in a lot of ways, this is, to me, the big problem with the discussion in this country in general. And the fact that it's coming from a conservative is, once again, extremely disappointing to me. This is always going to be disappointing to me. And I'm not going to bury the lead here. The simple fact is that what I'm really tired of, and I think what everybody's really tired of, is when you get these people who are supposed experts and supposedly on some kind of higher plane for whatever reason. They are, I don't really want to call Matt Walsh the elite. They're working very hard to make him look like he's not, but the reality is that he is. He's got a job that puts him in a situation where he is in a position to tell us what to do. That's kind of, if that's not what elite is, I don't know what is. He makes a ton of money. It's probably in the millions, at least. They work very hard to make him sort of humble looking and, your average guy, there's a banjo in the background. Oh, look, it's so adorable. He's just your average guy. And maybe he was at one point, but he's not now, not really. The ultimate question here is, what do you have for us, Matt? The country's burning. It's falling down. Everyone feels like they're in a real bad, tight spot here. And dating used to be this one place where the world wasn't burning down. You know what I mean? I remember hearing my parents talk about the dating world when they were young and how amazing it was and how special it was to them. Because a lot of people that was where they found their release. That was where they found their excitement, sure, but just an escape from everything else was when you could sit down at the dinner table and meet someone new, and it was something that you could look forward to. They talked about it a lot at work. You can still see this in older movies, especially from the 90s and the 80s, where people would talk about how, I've got a date tonight, And that was very real. I mean, that was actually something that a lot of people could point to and say, yeah, me too. That's just like what I talk about at work with my friends. And it used to be this, I don't know, it used to be sort of magical. And now it's become a nightmare. It's become a nightmare. And so here you have, Matt Walsh, who is married, who has kids, who is somebody that you want to look up to. And, in theory, just on paper, definitely not in reality, but on paper, this is somebody that you would want to hear from, right? Hey, tell me what to do. Where should I go? Where should I look? Who should I try to meet, and when, and how did you do it? And is your marriage okay? Is your marriage good? And all that you really get from this video is generalities. And and it's not just me. Everyone is just so damn tired of this. They're tired of the generalities. This guy makes too much money to talk like this, to talk in generalities, and to sort of just wag his finger in your face. Doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, let's get started and see if he's got anything for us.
So for our daily cancellation day, I want to follow up on a conversation we had yesterday. To open the show on Wednesday, we discussed, like we have plenty of times in the past, the modern dating scene. And during that conversation, I listed what I think are the main challenges that young single people face today. And now I want to add one other challenge to the list that I neglected to include. And it comes from this, that in response to the segment, I heard, as I always do, anytime we talk about this, from several people who insisted that I am neither qualified nor equipped to give dating advice because I'm too old and I've been out of the game for too long. This is one of the most common rebuttals that I hear whenever this subject comes up. A similar objection is raised whenever I try to offer advice to younger people who are struggling to, or more likely refusing to, move out of their parents' house and build an independent, successful adult life. In that case, I'm often informed that I'm old, I have money, and therefore I can't possibly understand what younger people are experiencing or how difficult it is to be in their shoes. And so I should just shut up because what do I know about any of this? Now, I'm not the only one who encounters this attitude, of course, and this is what happens anytime someone my age or older who has reached a certain level of professional and personal success tries to offer a few, morsels of wisdom on these subjects. There's always going to be someone, usually a whole crowd of people, rushing into the scene to let us know that we're out of touch, we're old, we're spoiled, we're elitist somehow, we have it easy, and therefore we have nothing relevant to say. We should just shut up. This is, as I
This is a bit of a weird stretch to me too, where he could have just kept this to marriage and dating, and for some reason, and I don't know if is this conscious or is this on purpose, where he actually stretched it to so that you're not just talking about the thing that you're talking about anymore. Now he's talking about the fact that, well, I have other things to talk about too, and people don't want to hear that as well. And it's like, well, no, not really, because we kind of know you got lucky, Matt. That's really what this comes down to, is a lot of life is luck. Now, I'm not saying that Matt Walsh doesn't deserve what he has. He's got a talent for it. He's got a talent for what he does. He probably has a pretty great resume behind him. I don't think he just popped out of nowhere and that the Daily Wire literally found him just because he was walking down the street and they said, wow, you got a great beard. But the reality is, Matt, that yeah, whenever you start trying to be the advice guy, there is always going to be somebody out there who says, yeah, but you say that because you got lucky, dude. And you know what the response to that really should be in most cases? Yeah, you're right. You're right, I got lucky. Because you know what? In my experience, it's usually true. It's usually true. If I've had very high highs and I've had very low lows in my own life. And honestly, a lot of it came down to luck. Yeah, I had some talent. And that pushed me in the right direction sometimes, and that got me into the right rooms, in the right places. Sure. But you know what? I had to be lucky too. There had to be a lot of foundational building that had nothing to do with me. And I think that's what is ultimately wrong with this country and the sort of meritocracy and hypercapitalism that we've developed, is that people are uncomfortable with that. People like Matt Walsh are uncomfortable with that. And they have to, they do in a sense have to figure out that actually a lot of us are in places we have no right to be. Not really. A lot of us end up in situations where we have far more power than our resumes should have us actually holding, right? And, the simple fact is, that's great. That's great for Matt. And it's, in a sense, luck, you can't change that. There's nothing that we're going to change about that. But you do have to treat that as part of the game and part of the calculus. And sometimes the best advice is just being able to say, hey, I got lucky. I got real lucky, man. And you know what? If you don't get lucky, don't beat yourself up. You just didn't get lucky. You rolled the dice, and it didn't come up for you. It came up for me. I remember talking to a guy about that. He had this, what was it? It was some kind of car show, and this guy had gotten this job where he was driving with these other people around the country in these, I think they were a set of Dodge Chargers and Challengers and Vipers and stuff. And they were all the new ones, so Dodge was trying to push them out to people. And I asked him, how did you get this job? Because this is just this dream job where you drive a muscle car across the nation. And, he was kind of being coy about it. And he goes, oh, man, if I knew, I'd tell you, man. If I knew, And I just told him at one point, I said, listen, I don't want your job. I'm not trying to figure out how to get it. I just was wondering what happened. I thought there might be a story back there. Anyway, so I start talking about the car and stuff. And even though I'd moved on, he clearly hadn't. And there was something in him. And he kind of stopped me and he said, I got this through my dad. My dad is kind of big at Dodge. And I said, "Oh, that's great, man. That's really cool. that's a neat thing to be able to do." And you could tell like he was so ashamed about it. There's this secret shame that a lot of people have like that. And I think that if you could sort of metaphorically crack Matt Walsh's head open and look inside, I think you'd find that same kind of shame. And that's almost like what he's trying to exercise here. And that's all I hate. I just hate that. That's all. I really hate that. It's time for us to just admit that sometimes you just get lucky.
Said one of the other great challenges that many young single people face today. It is a self-inflicted challenge. They're trying to do something, in this case, find a wife or a husband, but in many cases, they're unwilling to listen to advice from people who've actually succeeded in doing the thing that they want to do. So they find themselves in the middle of the forest, off the trail and without a map, not because there is no trail or no map, but because they've chosen to discard those things and wander through the thicket aimlessly instead. Now, it is true that I am ancient and decrepit at the advanced age of 37. It's a wonder that I'm even able to walk without assistance at this age, but that doesn't mean that my relationship advice is obsolete. In fact, there are many people even older than me, if you can believe it, whose advice is not obsolete either, who have even better advice than I do. And that's because, in part, the fundamental challenges that you face as a young single person looking for love in the world are the same fundamental challenges faced by anyone who has sought romance and companionship anywhere in the world at any point in history ever. Now, it's true that you face some unique obstacles. Some of those obstacles are quite daunting, quite significant. No doubt about that. But human nature is the same as it has always been. And therefore, the basic roadmap to a successful relationship and a happy marriage is basically the same.
Yeah. So technically, as usual, the conservative says everything technically correct, the best kind of correct. But unfortunately, in reality, this doesn't work out, and the reason is because it takes two to tango. And if you're a guy. Because let's face it, I think most people who are listening to Matt Walsh's show, who are talking about dating, are of a certain age, and they're probably male. If you're a guy and you're asking people like Matt Walsh, like, what should I do? And his response is something generic or old school. It doesn't ring true, does it? Because ultimately, Matt Walsh wouldn't have a job if we were living in the same world that he thinks you should live in. Why the hell would anybody listen to this show? Honest to God. The only reason, think about it. The only reason that anybody would listen to this stupid show is because the world is so screwed up that somebody like this who says generic truths is comforting. Like a warm blanket on a rainy day. That's really all this is it's sort of like psychological, it's psychological soothing, right? In a world that has gone upside down. And then this idiot, this unself-aware dum-dum, goes, well, human nature is the same as it always was. Yeah, that is true. That's fair enough. I think it's also very safe to say that there is something very wrong with people right now. And it's not that human nature changed. It's that the impetus changed. It's that there's an old saying in, I think it's engineering. Garbage in, garbage out. Right? And the world has had garbage plugged in to it en masse for a very, very, very long time. So when people ask about dating from somebody like this, what they're trying to figure out is, hey man, you have what we don't have. How'd you get it? And can you be as specific as possible? Something he will never do here, I don't think. It's been a while since I listened to this, but I don't remember him getting very specific in any very serious way. The obvious question here for a lot of people is, what did you do, and is it possible to copy that, or did you just get lucky? Because the simple fact is that a lot of these women today they're not acting the way that they always have. There are certain women in certain circles who will, and that's a very small pool of people, and frankly, you can't even trust them. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. I dated somebody very seriously and almost married her for about a year and a half. And when I met her, she was Christian and I was not. And that was kind of the biggest flaw in the relationship that we had for a long, long time. Was what happens if we get together in a very serious way? We were talking about this, what about children? What do the kids go to church? Do I go to church with them? And that was kind of one of her lines, was like, well, you have to go to church with us because I'm going to raise them Christian, and we're going to raise them right. And I actually said, yeah, you know what? You're right. I will go to church with you. And I'm not even sure that the kids should know that I'm not a Christian because I actually did like the idea of our kids having faith. And even though I wasn't raised with that, part of my concern was, well, what if all these kids need is faith, and what if all I needed was faith, and if I had been raised differently, maybe I wouldn't have all these issues. I don't know. I was very lost back then. I really was. There were a lot of open questions, and that was okay with us. That was okay with us as a couple, because I think that would have been part of the adventure had we stayed together. And then she cheated on me twice. That's the punchline. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. What was I supposed to do? Well, what were the red flags? Looking back on it, were there some? A couple. But honestly, not serious ones. Not ones that would leap out at you and make you go, oh no. I knew that was going to happen. Dang it. If only I'd paid attention to that a little bit more. No. This just kind of happened. It just kind of, and the reality is that a lot of people have dealt with this. And that was a Christian girl that I met at a unofficially Christian school full of Christians. Very conservative, very Christian, very Protestant college. And in the end, it just turned out it was a matter of time. And that's all I'll get into for now. I don't mind talking about it, but it will take us. That is a long story. That is a long story. But the reality is that you really can just put it into those terms very quickly. I was blindsided. A lot of people are these days, and not just men. Not just men. A lot of women are too. Something's very awry. Something's very wrong. And so a lot of people are going to married people and going, what are we supposed to do? And the married people go, what we always did. Really? How helpful. Because we tried that. And it didn't work.
as it has always been. Now, there's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy here that I've noticed, which is that we declare that everything is different now, and the wisdom of the past no longer applies. And the more we insist on that, the more screwed up things get, and therefore the more different and less applicable that wisdom actually becomes. So, for example, just to illustrate this, one piece of advice that I give, and that many people much wiser than me give, so that you can just listen to them if you want and not me, is to embrace what we now call gender roles. And what in the past they didn't call gender roles because they didn't have a word for it, because it just was what you did. It was so obvious and innate that you didn't need a term to describe what it was.
I don't even know what he's about to say here, but to be honest, this is already making me mad. Embrace gender roles. What the hell are you talking about? You're talking to women now, right? You're talking to women. Truly. Because I know plenty of guys who have said, yeah, I've never looked for one of these pioneering professional women, but they're everywhere. So what are you telling us? What are you telling me to do as a man? I get it. Maybe he's just talking to women here. Let's find out. But if this somehow becomes men's fault, again,
one of the things that makes it difficult for single people to match up with each other and form functional relationships and eventually marriages is that they have no idea what the point of a relationship is and what the man is supposed to do within that relationship and what the woman is supposed to do. Those of us who advocate for a restoration of those roles, or simply a recognition of them because they're innate, we will be told that our advice is antiquated because we don't do gender roles in our society anymore. In other words, the people who reject these roles...
I mean, let's just take this from a very realistic point of view. The simple fact is that even if you were to say that you believed in gender roles, I've had this conversation with women many, many times, where they have personally, privately, quietly whispered to me, and I do mean whispered, they don't really want to be the boss bitch. They don't want a job. They don't want a profession. They want kids. They want a man at work who comes home. They want all the things. They want all the normal stuff. Yeah, Matt, we know, buddy, that we're supposed to, that the world works a certain way. Man goes out and gets the mammoth meat and he comes home to wife and children. Yep, I know, pal. But the simple fact is that realistically, that ain't happening. It ain't happening no more. That's reality. Reality says that women have to go out and try to get a job. And here's what's really happening out there, right? Here's what's really going on. Men have given women a reason to be afraid of them for a very long time. There was a long time where men sort of brought home the bacon, yeah, but that also meant that when they slept with their secretary or whatever, almost everything legally was in their name. That's why we have a lot of the laws that we do now, because a lot of the time women would just find themselves effectively out of house and home because their husband decided that he wanted a newer model of female. And so in order to sort of work past that and figure out a way to protect yourself from that, what a lot of women started telling girls, especially in like the 80s and the 90s, was you have your own life. You have your own money. You have your own bank account. You do not let that man hurt you like he hurt us. Don't let him do it. And a lot of women go, oh, that makes sense. Because these guys, if everything is in their name and everything somehow turns into, I did a video about this earlier, didn't I? About the idea that, you have all these guys out there who are saying, the man made all the money. It's the man's money because he made it, because of this weird hyper-capitalism sickness that we have. Rather than saying it's our money because you were at home with the kids and that's just as valuable as what I'm doing at work. You still hear jokes about it. In stand-up, Bill Burr has a whole stand-up about it, right? Stand-up routine about that. Oh, well, where were all these women coming out of the woodwork asking for half? Well, where were you when it was time to blah, 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 blah? Yeah, buddy, you got to make a choice. You got to make a choice. Which way do you want it? Do you want gender roles where we value the things that women do, whether or not they're making a check at the end of the day? Or is it your money, and then your wife and kids are this ball and chain around your neck that you lug around? Which one is it? And that's how this happened in the first place. These shitty ideas, these shitty takes on gender roles were actually part of the crisis to begin with. So now women have said, okay, well, we're just going to have a job. And what they're really hoping for is for Prince Charming to show up. That's actually what they're genuinely hoping for. I really didn't realize this until about a couple of years ago, but I kind of started getting the idea when I was in grad school. A lot of women in grad school, right? And the reality is that they realize if you're a certain age and you're in your late 20s, something like that, maybe early 30s, you end up back in grad school because you think, well, Prince Charming isn't coming. He never showed up to this sort of low, this low responsibility job that I had, where I was kind of trying to like throw the net out there, see what I could catch. Right? A lot of them, if you really talk to them quietly behind the scenes, will tell you that what they were really hoping for was like that guy to walk into the store and go, oh, hey, what are you doing later? And now that's not happening. And a lot of that has to do with society, right? I've talked about that in a prior video. It's just a tragedy right now. That's all. Sometimes that's good enough to be able to just say that, hey, life is a tragedy and society is a tragedy and it's hurting us in the long run. And at this point, maybe society is just, it's over. It's over. Because ultimately, the only way to win this game is not to play.
Are making a mistake by rejecting them and then using that mistake as justification for continuing to make the same mistake. Now, it's true that we live in a society where many people have rejected the timeless wisdom of the ages when it comes to how relationships are supposed to function. This has created many unique difficulties.
What in the hell are you talking about? This is a guy whose job, he makes millions of dollars to tell you what to do and what to think. And all he can say is, we're just rejecting the wisdom of the ages. What does that mean? What are you talking about?
But the solution, therefore, is to stop rejecting that timeless wisdom. It's not to continue rejecting it on the basis that it's already been rejected. You know, another piece of timeless wisdom, again, this is not some brilliant, innovative idea that I came up with on my own, is exactly what we're talking about right here. Whatever it is that you're trying to do.
You know what the problem is? It sounds a lot like it would be as if someone asked him about how often they should change the oil in their car. And Matt, being a very old-fashioned guy, started talking about, well, let's see, when my horse needs new shoes, that's usually about every 100 miles or so. I'll take him into the blacksmith, and the blacksmith will fix the shoes and dig out all the little burrs in the hooves, and you go, whoa, Matt, I don't have a horse, buddy. I don't have a horse. I have a car. We live in 2024. I have a car. What are you talking about? And then Matt takes the opportunity to go, oh, God, you kids and your newfangled ways. Nobody ever really had a problem getting around on a horseback. And yet here you are with your newfangled stuff, and you just keep telling me, Matt, get over the horse thing. Well, I'm not going to, because it works. It works. Yeah, Matt, it works. It's just irrelevant. The question is, how many times do I need to get an oil change during the year? When do I do that? And you won't answer the question because you want to grandstand about how things were better back in the day.
Do in life, you should seek out people who have actually done it and done it successfully and use them as an orientation point. And if you will not listen to them, if you disqualify all of them on the basis that their situation is not precisely exactly like yours down to the last minute detail, then you have doomed yourself to a life of dysfunction and confusion. Now, of course, the situation is actually often worse than what I'm describing here, because often younger people will listen to relationship advice offered by voices actually outside of their own heads. There are plenty of social media personalities and YouTubers and people in media who have garnered large followings in part by talking about these kinds of issues. The problem is that many of them have never done the thing successfully either. They aren't married, they have not formed, maintained, and provided for a functional nuclear family, or they were married and now they're divorced. You know, their lives are like total disasters.
Yeah, and I get where he's coming from here, but this is an old conservative talking point. I remember a debate with, it was between Dennis Prager and somebody, and it was definitely a younger woman, and Prager could not argue with this woman. The debate was actually about marriage and whether or not people should get married, and he just kept, and I mean this literally, he kept laughing at her and saying that it's just so hard to explain to you why you should get married because you've never been married, so how would you know? It was very cringe. It was one of the most trying hours I've ever heard of Dennis Prager ever. And my whole family thought so, by the way. That's how bad it was. Because in the end, the question obviously becomes, okay, so tell me, as somebody who was married, why should I? Why should I get married? And conservatives can't answer this question for some reason. They can't really do it. They'll give you all these genericisms. Oh, well, you know, it really teaches you to look past yourself, and it teaches you about, you know, the world in a different way. And it's like, yeah, okay, so travel does that too, right? So why don't I just travel instead of getting married? Well, then you won't have kids. Don't you understand? Okay, well, you know, maybe I won't have kids, but there's lots of surplus kids in the world at this point, right? I mean, I could just dedicate my life to being a big brother or something like that, right? I mean, oh no, but then it wouldn't be your children. It wouldn't be, don't you care about your bloodline? Not really. Not really. I think we in America have kind of figured out that doesn't really matter, right? Or at least that's what we keep telling ourselves, we think. And then every single time that it comes down to it, for some reason, children become the one reason why bloodline really does matter to conservatives behind closed doors, or when they're talking about this subject for some reason, as we've seen in prior videos. So, yeah, this is an old talking point for conservatives, where it's just like you should do it because I say so. I have more experience than you because I did the thing. My life is okay. And the reality is that what this guy doesn't realize is I was kind of where he was at in a relationship with somebody too. I never got married to her, but we were definitely talking about it. And everything seemed fine. And then it all blew up. So yeah, of course, young men who are experiencing that kind of thing en masse are going to those people who have also experienced that for advice. How do I deal with this? It's a psychological nuke, is what it is. It's when a woman does that to you, and again, when a man does it to a woman, it's just as bad, if not worse. But when a woman can do that to a man, almost everything about the world collapses in on him. Because, and this is true for both genders again, when someone cheats on you, what they've really proven to you is that you had no idea what's going on. You have no idea what's going on in the world. It unanchors you in a way that is so violent and so abrupt that it truly destroys your ability to almost interact with the world entirely. Because what else do you not understand? You thought you had a pretty good idea of what was going on. You go out to dinner, you have a lot of fun, you have these wonderful conversations. I used to talk with this girl, by the way, that I was telling you about. Something like, in certain cases, 8 hours a day by phone, because it was a long distance relationship. 8 hours on the phone all night. Couldn't stop talking to each other. We were so in love with each other. And every conversation was this. I mean, we couldn't stop. We could not stop talking about what we thought, about what we felt, about what we wanted in the world. And then that happens, and you think, what was real? What wasn't? Was it all fake? How much time did I lose to this? What a waste of my life. What the hell was the point? And why? Why do this? What is the point of all this? It really sends you into a spiral. And it's look, I get it. If you're the kind of guy who has a lovely marriage, you're going to say genuinely, generically nice things about marriage. I have a good time. But that's not what young guys and gals need to hear from anybody. It's unhelpful, you dum-dum. It's unhelpful. I would love to know, Matt, what was I supposed to do with this girl who ripped my heart out in my early 20s? What was the thing that would have fixed it all? You don't have the experience for this, buddy. That's why they're not listening to you. And that's why they're trying to tell you what's actually going on out there. You got lucky. And frankly, for a lot of people, they know that in this guy's case, for all he knows, it's just a matter of time. That's what it feels like when something like this happens to you. It's just a matter of time. Right? You look back on it and you go, my God, all those 8-hour conversations, a year and a half of my life wasted, and it was all just a matter of the ticking clock. And the bomb went off. Because again, not that many red flags out there for me. In hindsight, sure. But in real time, nothing. How would I have known? So the question for a lot of guys and gals out there now is, how do I deal with that? How do I deal with the chaos of life in that sense and do it again? How do I do this again? And where should I go? And he's got no answers. And the reality is, that's fine. Just don't have the answers. And say, you know what? I got lucky. Sometimes life is about luck. That's all.
They have not demonstrated that they have any real insight into the subject at all. In fact, if anything, they demonstrated a profound lack of insight and a tendency towards failure and dysfunction in the very arena that they're pontificating about. And this is one of the reasons why many young people are lost in the dating world. They either don't listen to anyone's advice, or they seek advice from people who are just as lost as they are, if not more lost. And this is reflected not just in the dating world, across our culture on nearly every subject. Experience, wisdom, and success are counted as negative somehow, as hits against your credibility, as essentially disqualifying factors. Now, it's true and could be rightly pointed out here, that plenty of people claim to be experienced and wise and actually aren't. And part of the context here is the trust the experts thing. And the problem, though, with trust the experts when it's so often used is that the people that are being put forward as experts actually aren't. And so it's all a big lie. And skepticism in that context.
So prove it. Prove you're an expert. This is your chance. This is this is a 9-minute video. And in no part of this entire thing have you said, hey, let me give you some really, really, really specific advice. I'm seeing pushback on this. Because this is you could spend literally hours on this topic if you were truly an expert, as you keep claiming to be. You could spend hours on this topic. Hey, here was, my experience dating my wife. Here were some of the experiences I had dating other people. A lot of it didn't go well. I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you where it all went wrong. Here's what I would do if I could do it all over again. And there is no real advice coming from these people. I remember I didn't want to do a reaction to the entire video because it's something like 2 hours, and I actually don't like Pearl from Just Pearly Things. And she did a debate with Michael Knowles, and I was just kind of skipping around in that debate, and and she asked him a question about, like, what exactly is it that men are supposed to do in the face of the crappy world that we've inherited, and how bad the dating scene is, and how women are acting in the dating world very poorly, right? And Now's response to that was that, well, we should change their minds. We got to change their minds. Like we're supposed to get into a debate with everybody we sit down with, Like every time you go on a blind date or a Tinder hookup or whatever, you're supposed to sit down and, like, the air horn goes off. Let's get ready to rumble, and then you come out swinging with with both arms as a conservative trad boy. You're gonna make this chick understand her place or whatever, And it's also cringe. It's also stupid. Let's see if he has anything left to say at this point.
Is not only warranted, but highly recommended. But there are some basic truths that can be learned and put into practice, even by someone like me, who is not especially wise, but has at least some common sense, at least the kind of sense common to those of us who have been married and had families and learned what it takes and put it into practice. And that is why those who say that we are somehow less qualified to give advice at all are today the ones who are canceled. Hey, YouTube.
Yuck. Okay. Well, that was that, such as it was. Unhelpful at most. And God, it's so enraging because your literal job is to tell people what to do. That's really what people are sort of cluing in for. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe what it is just like a panacea for boomers, right? Maybe that really is. You have a certain type of what's it called, like a timbre to your voice, and you just kind of tell boomers what they want to hear. These boomers who, like, I don't even understand, because a lot of boomers got divorced and they've had terrible marriages, but they're also very they're not very self-aware, are they? So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just that simple. God. And I was looking at the comments on this video just to wrap it up, and it's overwhelmingly negative. And it's so enraging, because, again, that really is part of the problem with this country, isn't it? That you have these people who just kind of keep insisting on one ideology or the other, whether it's from the right or the left. And you have all these people on the ground going, this doesn't work. This doesn't function as planned. That's all. This doesn't function as planned. Change your perspective. Hurry. We don't have much time left, and you're there. You know, there really is very few people in the world who have a job, a position, whatever you want to call it, like Matt Walsh, who's got something of an audience, who's on every day and has and can turn people's ears. And it's just such a wasted experience for everybody. Because at the very best, if this is just a panacea for boomers, and it's just that blanket that they put on every day while they're mowing the lawn or whatever, and I mean, what a waste! What a waste! You have these people's attention, and you're not going to use it to sort of engage with ideas that are a little different, to go into the unknown and try to figure stuff out on the fly a little bit. It's such a limit. It's such a bizarre limit of the imagination and talent, and a waste of talent. Because this guy, look, he can talk. This guy is pretty good at it. It's just a real shame that all he ever does with it is sort of wag his finger in the face of the less fortunate.